Imagine you're a prosecutor, right? You're in this high-stakes courtroom.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You got the prime suspect on trial, the jury is just staring holes into you, and it's time to present your absolute ultimate piece of evidence.
The big moment.
Exactly. So you reach into your evidence bag, you pull out a bloody glove, and you hold it high. You look at the jury and confidently announce, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a glove. It has blood on it. It was found at the scene." And then
I guess.
you just sit down.
Wow. Yeah, you'd lose that case before you even made it back to your chair
Right. The defense wouldn't even to cross-examine. You basically just handed them the win.
because you just described an object.
Yeah.
You completely failed to explain exactly how or why that specific glove places that specific suspect at the crime scene.
Exactly. You didn't explain what the implications of the blood are or why all of that undeniably proves guilt. And, well, welcome to today's deep dive, because we are taking that exact courtroom scenario and applying it to a trap that, honestly, almost all of us fall into every single day.
Oh, absolutely. We do it all the time without realizing it.
Yeah. Today we are looking at this really fascinating, highly practical guide on how to answer one incredibly demanding question, which is, how does this support your claim?
And this is such a crucial mission for you listening today, because mastering this is the ultimate shortcut to making an airtight argument.
Whether you're, prepping for a massive meeting, writing a paper, or just want to be a more persuasive communicator in general.
Right, because when a grader or a manager or a client asks how your evidence supports your claim, they are absolutely not asking for a summary. They do not want you to just repeat the facts back to them.
Nobody wants to just hear the facts again.
Exactly. The real goal, what they are actually asking, is a three-part sort of subtextual question. They want to know, what does this evidence actually prove? What does it change or cause in the real world? And crucially, why should I care?
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to get to that level of persuasive power, we have to look at the psychology behind it, right? I mean, if we all know that merely holding up a bloody glove isn't enough, why do we constantly do the equivalent of that in our own writing and speaking?
Well, what's fascinating here is the specific cognitive mechanism the source material highlights. It's a mental trap.
A trap. How so?
So when we first look at a piece of evidence, our brains naturally do what the text calls step one, which is asking, what is this actually saying? We're looking for the literal meaning.
Which is important, right? I mean, you have to know what you're looking at to prevent misinterpretation.
Oh, absolutely vital. You can't skip it. But once we have that literal meaning, we naturally move to step two, which is, what does this imply? Like, what's the hidden meaning just beneath the surface?
And see, that is usually the exact moment where I feel like I've cracked the code. Like, I'll look at a stat about declining sales. I realize it implies our new marketing strategy is failing. And I'm just like, boom, nail it. I've made an argument.
And that right there is the trap, that little dopamine hit.
Wait, dopamine?
Yeah. Our brains basically treat finding that hidden meaning like solving a crossword puzzle. You figure out the hidden implication, your brain gives you a little chemical reward, and it signals to you that the task is complete. You feel insightful.
Oh, wow. So my brain is literally tricking me into thinking I'm done.
Exactly. But stopping at step two is where most students and communicators stop way too early. You uncovered a hidden meaning, sure, but you completely failed to explain the consequences of that meaning to the person listening to you.
I see. So I solved the riddle of what the evidence means, but I haven't done the heavy lifting of explaining what the evidence actually does. Like, I haven't connected the dots for the jury at all.
Precisely. Which brings us to the rest of what the source calls the five-step sub-question system.
Okay, lay it on me.
Since we know stopping at the hidden meaning isn't enough, we need a system to force ourselves to cross the finish line into pure explanation. So if step one is literal meaning and step two is hidden implication, we have to push past that dopamine hit and go straight into step three.
Which is what?
Step three is asking, what does this cause or lead to? You have to ask what happens purely because of this evidence. Who is physically or systemically affected by it?
So you're shifting from observing a static fact to establishing an active chain of causality.
Exactly. And once you establish that causality, you are ready for step four. And this is the big one. Step four is, why does that matter? Or, more bluntly, so what?
So what? That's a great question to ask yourself.
It's the most important question.
Yeah.
Why is this consequence important in the grand scheme of things? The source text points out that step four is where the actual points are earned on an exam, or where the actual persuasion happens in a pitch.
Right. And then I'm assuming step 5 wraps it up.
Yeah, step 5 is just, how does that answer the prompt? basically tying it all back to your original claim.
Okay, I need to jump in and push back on this a little bit
Go for it.
because I'm putting myself in your shoes as a listener right now. If I am sitting in a testing hall with a ticking clock, or, I'm standing at a podium in a really high-pressure Q&A session, answering 5 distinct, highly analytical questions for every single data point feels incredibly overwhelming.
It sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, how does anyone actually do this in real time without totally freezing up?
It is a completely fair concern. If you tried to consciously hold all 5 of those philosophical questions in your working memory, you'd crash. You would absolutely run out of time. But the resolution to that pressure, the real magic of this system, is that all of those analytical steps collapse into one simple sentence formula.
Okay, now you have my attention. I'm mentally taking notes. What is the formula?
It's surprisingly elegant. It goes like this. This shows blank because blank, which led to blank, supporting the claim that blank.
This shows blank because blank, which led to blank, supporting the claim that blank. Wow, yeah, that is elegant. It essentially forces you to hit the hidden meaning, the causality, the impact, and the tieback, all without having to conduct an entire mental interview with yourself.
Exactly. You just fill in the blanks.
Let's test this to see if it actually holds up in practice. The source material uses this classic historical example about the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, just walk through that specific one. So imagine your overarching claim is industrialization caused severe social inequality.
Okay.
And the specific piece of evidence you have to use is factory workers had notoriously low wages and 14-hour workdays.
All right, so if I'm doing the weak answer, basically the equivalent of holding up the bloody glove and sitting down, I would probably just say, this shows workers had terrible conditions, and my brain would give me that dopamine hit, and I'd think I proved my point.
And a grader or a judge would look at that and say, well, true, they had terrible conditions, but how does that prove the creation of severe social inequality? You basically left all the analytical work to the reader.
Right.
So let's take that same raw evidence and run it through the magic formula. You start with what it shows, the hidden implication.
Okay, so this shows workers were actively exploited.
Perfect. Now add the because to anchor it to the evidence.
Because they faced low wages and 14-hour workdays.
Nice. Now you need the impact, which led to what is the consequence of that exploitation.
Which led to a massive wealth gap and increased class inequality.
And finally, the tie back to the original claim.
Supporting the claim that industrialization created deep social divisions.
There you go.
Let me put that all together into one thought just to hear it. This shows workers were exploited because they faced low wages or 14-hour workdays, which led to a massive wealth gap and increased class inequality, supporting the claim that industrialization created deep social divisions.
Wow. Look at the difference in persuasive power there. The weak answer is just a passive observation, but the strong answer is this undeniable interlocking logic chain.
Yeah, it seamlessly blends the evidence, the implication, the impact, and the claim into a single thought. And I didn't have to agonize over the philosophy of class warfare. I just systematically filled in the blanks.
That's the beauty of it.
But let's be realistic for a second, because even with a perfect formula, we all know that terrifying feeling when your brain just flat out blue screens.
Oh, the total mental freeze.
Exactly. You're staring at a piece of evidence, you know you need to fill in those blanks, but the words just will not materialize.
The source anticipates that exact panic, actually, which is why it provides this whole toolbox of fast mental shortcuts. Basically, brainstorming tricks designed to instantly unstick your thinking.
Hacks for the brain.
Exactly, cognitive hacks to make the logic click under pressure. Let's start with the arrow method.
How does that one work?
Well, when we panic, our working memory gets totally flooded. So instead of trying to draft a grammatically perfect sentence in your head, you offload that cognitive burden by turning your thinking into a visual flow using arrows.
Oh, literally drawing arrows.
Literally. You grab some scratch paper and just map out evidence, arrow, meaning arrow, impact, arrow, claim.
So using our factory worker example, I wouldn't worry about verbs at all. I would just jot down. Low wages, arrow, exploitation, arrow, inequality, arrow, supports claim.
Yes.
And just seeing that visual map on the page takes the pressure off. Converting it into a spoken sentence afterward is almost effortless because the skeleton is already built.
Exactly the point. But, the arrow method requires you to be a visual thinker, and you actually need a pen and paper.
Right. Which doesn't help me if I'm, say, standing in a meeting answering a rapid-fire question from my boss. I can't exactly draw arrows in the air.
True. But there's an auditory equivalent for that. It's called the because chain.
The because chain.
Yeah. This trick is specifically for when your explanation feels shallow or you're stuck speaking off the cuff. You force yourself to verbally extend your reasoning by stating, this matters because A, because B, because C.
Okay, give me an example.
So you might say, this matters because workers were exploited, because they lacked bargaining power, because the industrial owners held total control.
That sounds remarkably similar to the 5 whys technique they use in engineering. You know, when a machine breaks, engineers don't just look at a snapped belt. They ask why 5 times to drill down to the absolute root cause.
It is the exact same principle, just applied to rhetoric. You are drilling down to the root logic. But the expert source notes a very specific rule here. You must stop after 2 or 3 layers before turning it into a sentence.
Really? Why the limit? If drilling down is good, isn't more better?
Because if you just keep saying because, you eventually end up with this massive, rambling, run-on sentence.
Oh, right. You lose the audience.
Exactly. 2 to 3 layers get you deep enough to show profound understanding, but it keeps the delivery tight and authoritative.
That makes total sense. Now, what if the problem isn't that my logic is shallow, but that my evidence is just too weirdly specific? Like, I'm looking at a tiny detail and I simply cannot figure out why it matters to the broader argument.
That is when you deploy the zoom-out trick.
The zoom-out trick.
Yeah. When you're staring at a micro detail and drawing a blank, you deliberately ask yourself, what broader macro-level concept does this detail connect to? So if your evidence is about, say, the struggles of one specific coal miner in 1890, you zoom out to discuss the entire unregulated labor system.
Oh, I like that. So you treat the specific piece of evidence as a microcosm for a larger systemic issue. This specifically prevents those shallow answers.
Precisely. You shift from the micro to the macro.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting, because my absolute favorite trick in the entire source text takes the exact opposite approach. It's called the opposite test.
Oh, the opposite test is brilliant.
It really is. Instead of agonizing over what a piece of evidence does or causes, you ask yourself, what would happen if this evidence simply didn't exist?
It's a phenomenal hack because it leverages our evolutionary psychology. Humans are naturally hardwired to spot absence and predict worst-case scenarios.
Right. We're much faster at identifying what's missing than analyzing what is actually present. Like, the source uses the invention of railroads as an example.
Right.
If you were struggling to articulate the complex economic impact of railroads, just imagine a reality without them. No railroads means goods cannot travel overland quickly. It means factories can only sell locally. It means massive bottlenecks.
Exactly.
Therefore, railroads shattered those bottlenecks and massively expanded long-distance trade. You instantly identify the impact just by flipping the reality.
It works flawlessly.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of other quick cognitive triggers briefly mentioned in the text too, like the category match.
How does that one work?
It's where you force your evidence to match the specific type of prompt you were given. Like if it's a causation prompt, your explanation must highlight the domino effect.
Right. What chain reaction did this start?
Exactly. But if you're given a comparison prompt, the domino effect doesn't matter as much. You have to ask, how is this different from another era?
Yeah.
It forces your brain down the correct analytical path.
And if even that feels too academic, the text mentions the who-why trigger, right?
Yes. You strip away all the complexity and just force yourself to answer who is affected by this and why are they affected. String those two together and you've got an explanation.
So at this point, we have an incredibly robust toolkit. We have the 5-step system, the elegant fill-in-the-blank formula, and this whole array of brainstorming tricks.
You're fully equipped.
But I want to play devil's advocate one last time.
Do it.
What if everything goes catastrophically wrong? Like, you don't have time to draw arrows, you can't remember the prompt categories, you only have 10 seconds left on the clock, or you are completely panicked. What is the absolute bare minimum scorched earth strategy you need to just survive and prove your point?
This is arguably the most relieving section of the source material. It explicitly outlines what you should immediately ignore in a crisis.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. You do not need to memorize the, quote, 6 mechanisms of historical change.
Yeah.
You do not need the tricks or fancy vocabulary. Those are training tools, not test tools. The real goal is just making your reasoning direct and impossible to misinterpret.
So what's the survival guide? What are the steps?
It's the 10-second rule. Just 4 rapid-fire beats. 1, say what the evidence shows. 2, add the word because. 3, add the impact. 4, add the claim.
I really want to emphasize that second beat, the word because. The source blatantly states that if your sentence does not include a real functioning because, your argument is probably weak.
It's the ultimate trigger word. I mean, think about the mechanics of English. The word because physically prevents you from merely describing a fact.
Right.
You literally cannot use the word because without providing a
It's a
reason.
built-in failsafe against the bloody glove trap.
Exactly. And paired with that single word is what the source calls the one mental question. So what?
So what?
Yeah. The scoring metric here is fascinating. Answer, so what?
Mm-hmm.
Once, and your argument is decent, it passes. But answer it twice, and it becomes undeniably strong.
Let's use the railroad example one last time to show how that cascade sounds. So you start with the raw evidence. Railroads expanded rapidly. Your brain says, okay, that shows an increase in transportation.
Right. Now, apply the first, so what?
So what that there is more transportation? Well, that means regional trade increased.
Now the second, so what?
So what that regional trade increased, it means national economies grew massively.
And right there, you have your undeniable logic chain. This shows railroads expanded trade because they improved long-distance transportation, which led to unprecedented economic growth, supporting the claim that industrialization strengthened national economies.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? It means you do not have to sound like a philosopher to construct a brilliant argument. You have exactly one job. Explain how the evidence proves the claim. Strip away the fluff, rely on the word because, and relentlessly answer, so what?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you start to realize this isn't just a cheat sheet for a timed essay. It's a blueprint for life.
Absolutely.
Communication is about persuasion. Whether you are pitching a new initiative to your boss, trying to win a debate at a dinner party, or writing an important email.
Yeah.
Mastering the because chain ensures your brilliant ideas aren't lost in weak delivery.
It prevents you from expecting the other person to do the heavy lifting. Which leaves me with a final provocative thought for you to mull over today. If making an argument completely unavoidable is simply a matter of asking, so what, twice, and clearly using the word because, how much of the information overload we face in the news every single day is actually just raw evidence waiting for someone to do the hard work of explaining it?
Oh, that's a great point.
Right. As you read your next article, ask yourself, is the author actually proving a claim, or are they just handing you a bloody glove and hoping you'll figure out what it means entirely on your own? Keep demanding the because. We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.